I'm Sian, Campbell-Colquhoun, which is a monster of a surname. When I was teaching, everyone just called me Mrs. CC. And my husband Ben and I and our 3 children moved into Bushy Heath in end of August. And we've been worshipping here since middle of September. It took us a couple of weeks to find Holy Trinity. And when we arrived, there was this sense of clunk. It's an amazing place to worship. In our first week of being here, I think you were leading with Jay, actually, that particular week. And I did think, oh my goodness, I've got quite a loud voice. Everyone's going to hear me singing, because it's such a small congregation. But within about half a song, it felt like 500 people were singing with us. And I think that's something spiritual that God does when you've got people who are really desiring to be in his presence. So thank you that we feel so at home here, that you guys are such going fit Christians. Thank you too, I've said this to Dave before, that you invite the Holy Spirit to come every week. You might think that's normal. It's not. My husband's in the army, so we move from church to church every year and a half. Sometimes we're lucky to be somewhere for 2 years, which we do get to be here. And so we've worshipped in a lot of different places. But God is definitely at work in Holy Trinity and in the wider community. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next 2 years. But I've got something to share with you this morning that Dave very kindly asked me to share, because he knew this term I'd been to Uganda. So I'm just going to leave that one up for the moment. We are trustees, Ben and myself, of an amazing charity in North Devon, based in North Devon. The founder lives in North Devon, the office is in North Devon, where we were living 2 years ago. So we got to hear about this charity through the church that we belong to. This guy shared about what goes on at this place, and Ben turned to me and said, let's take our children to Africa. And I said, don't be ridiculous. They'll get AIDS, they'll get bitten by a spider, all those totally irrational thoughts that a mother has. And it took him about 6 months to persuade me that it was a great thing for our family to do. So last summer, we took our family to Uganda, and we stayed on this farm, and it was transformational for us to see what God can do with limited money, if you like, but just this incredible obedience and willingness to be open. So Amigos is the overarching name of the charity. After the film, where the 3 amigos, I don't know if you've seen the film, these 3 city slickers, if you like, go to Mexico. Is it Billy Crystal and 3 comedians anyway? And they stay in this place in Mexico. Trouble hits. They're about to just disappear and go home. But they decided, no, they should stay put and help. And that's how Amigos, the charity, has got its name from there. Some British people went to Uganda, saw the need, and said, we can't just walk away and leave this, we want to help. Now, where we stayed as a family was just outside Kampala, the city, capital city, and we stayed on a farm. And Kira Farm is the hub of where all the activity happens. It's where the main work is done. And every year, 40 young people, aged between 17 and 25, they come and live on this farm, a bit like students, a boys' dorm, a girls' dorm, and they spend a year learning how to farm sustainably, how to do hair, make clothes, build houses, make furniture. They get incredible vocational skills, but they're taught how to farm the land in a way that doubles, triples the yield of crops they've had before. And this is where we stayed for the 2 weeks last summer. 20 young women, 20 young men, and they purposely choose 20 of each, but they choose 40 young people who have had tragic things happen in their lives. The local churches in Uganda help interview and select which young people would come and stay for this 1 year on the farm. There are many, many young boys who've been child soldiers who were kidnapped by the Lord's Resistance Army in the Civil War in Uganda, which was, I think, only finished within the last 10 years. So many of these boys who are teenagers in their early 20s were in the war, kidnapped from their families and forced to fight, forced to kill, perhaps their friends, perhaps their family members. So they're coming to this farm with the most incredible amount of emotional baggage. Many of the young women had been raped as children or as young teenagers. They have often left babies behind with grandma so that they can come and be at the farm for a year. And the charity supports this training at the farm. Once they leave the farm, they then actually go off back into their villages where they've come from, and they teach the rest of the village how to do what they've learnt to do. So you train one person, but you impact the entire community. So of course, you can imagine, we just saw this work and thought, this is an awesome work. Now, can I jump to the next slide? This is where I stayed. This is on the farm. It looks a bit like a lodge, really. I felt a bit guilty because we were eating really nice food, but the Africans love to bless visitors. So we paid kind of almost lodge-like rates to stay in this impressive lodge, and the next one is the farm. So as you drive into the farm, you can see some of the meeting buildings. The main meeting happens kind of in the open air, apart from a straw roof. And as you drive in, these 4 strap lines are down the road. Everything that you do at Kira Farm has to be on time, to a high standard, with minimum wastage, and with joy. And I just thought, I want to translate that into my everyday life back in the UK. Great strap lines to have. Now, this motley group of women flew out in November for a specific programme that we ran with the young women at the farm. So bearing in mind, they've been there for almost a year. They're getting to the stage where they're ready to go back into their communities. They've had lots of skills, lots of training on how to make themselves a business, make themselves self-sufficient. But men and women, but this program specifically had been written for the women, needed to know that they were valuable, that they were worth something, that they had something to offer, that people were going to listen to them. And the lady in the middle, the slim lady in the dress, Laura, has redesigned a program that Hillsong's Church Australia has written called Shine. So could you, now, this is what Shine Girl, because you've got Shine Woman, and we took the Shine Girl program into Kira Farm. These are the 7 things. For a whole week, we went into a little classroom, and each day we did one of these things. So the young women need to know they're valuable, they're one of a kind, they're fearfully and wonderfully made, they can make good choices, and their decisions determine their destiny, to know that there is no ceiling on what they can achieve and that their life has a purpose. And even though those young women in Africa needed to know that, I was really struck by the fact that's not just the African women, that's women here too. Now, chaps, I'm really sorry, it was a bit of a female-focused week that we had. The Hillsong's Church does also design a program called Strength, which is for blokes. So we're hoping to roll that out next year for the guys. But this particular program, Shine, is run across many places in Britain. So it's often taken into prisons, into schools, and Jen Crawley and I have been buzzing about how can we somehow run a program for the women of Bushy. And blokes, if you want to do something for the men, we'll chat through that with you too. But, you know, it translates around the world. We need to know that we have value, that we know where our strength comes from, and that our life has purpose. So this is me in the classroom. This just hit me in the back of the throat. The very first poster we put up for the girls to, and they had to, you know, shout this out every day, whatever was on the blackboard. We are not rubbish, and we are not a mistake. If you'd had the sort of upbringing that some of these girls had had, they didn't think they were worth anything. So each day we would meet in this classroom, and we had a little bit of teaching, but it was also very practical and lots of fun. Thank you. We'll get the next picture. So here are all the women, 20 young women, who have just made themselves a sunflower because they needed to know that they were one of a kind. Now, each of the girls was given exactly the same resources: tissue paper, a stick, some glitter and glue. And they each created a sunflower, and every single one was different. So it just reinforced that idea of God has given you what he's given you. You are not to look exactly like the next person. And I don't think this is just a female thing. Blokes might do this too, but I know for women, we're always comparing ourselves to other people. I wish I even had her well-behaved children. Sometimes I feel myself comparing to. And I felt really struck that God was saying, do not compare yourself with others around you. This is who I've made you to be. So if you go to the next slide, this is them in the classroom now. I mean, it's a really basic classroom. There were spiders crawling up the side. It was so hot. You can't quite see how hot it is. I was sweating every day. And they very graciously allowed us to come and share all our ideas with them. But these young women have never had exciting colouring pens. Can you imagine? Never having coloured things or cut and stuck things, because many of them had to miss school because in Uganda you have to pay for school. So they just loved cutting things. There was glitter everywhere. It was so much fun doing the practical things. And every day these young women were given a little gift. Day one they got a Primark bathroom bag, like a big bathroom bag. I think you can just see one of them's got it on her lap. And then each day we gave them a little something to put in their bag. It could have been some soap, a shower puff, some nail varnish, some hand cream. One day we gave them beautiful scarves. And you can see the delight on their faces to have been given these presents. And in fact, the Ugandans, I think many countries in Africa, they're so spontaneous, they're so grateful, they're so thankful. The minute you gave them anything, or they even agreed with something that you said, so when I put that strapline up, we are not rubbish, they'd all start cheering and clapping. I'm going to cover up my microphone like this. And they make this noise in their mouth. It kind of goes like that. And so you can imagine how noisy it was when 20 women are all ululating, I think the word is. And but when we gave them the scarves, we actually said to them, go and pick a scarf, wrap it up in a beautiful piece of paper with tissue and glitter and bows and butterflies, and then go and give it to somebody else in the room. Actually, girls were receiving something wrapped beautifully, and many of them said, I've never had a wrapped present before. So just the act of giving a gift helped them understand that this wasn't just a load of handouts, but that each of them, their life was a gift to be given for others. So that was a really moving day. Now, one of the days we had to encourage them that they were a daughter of the king and therefore a princess. They had to walk like a princess, and a lot of the teaching was really designed on empowering them to make wise choices, to say no to any man that said, oh, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. And of course, usually the women would go, oh, am I, lovely, and would go off with that man. So we were trying to encourage women to know, if someone tells you you're beautiful, if you know you're a princess and daughter of the king, you just say, thank you, I know. And just to have that embedded in them. So they had to wear tiaras. They had to walk. In fact, can you go to the next one a minute? Because there's a picture of the girls. They had to walk like a princess up and down. And then we took a picture of them each carrying this sign that said, I am the daughter of the king. I will fear nothing in the days ahead, for I know that I am his. And we laminated it, took a photo, laminated it, and then they took that away with them to stick on the board. So we are encouraging women to know their worth. But, you know, all the time I'm thinking, I've got plenty of friends in England that need to know that. They don't know they're special. They don't know they're loved. How could God love me? So, you know, bearing in mind, I'm telling you about what I did in Africa, but I'm in my other head thinking, and how can we bring this to play in England? Can we go to the next one? So this is the main street in the village. It is just crazy in Uganda. Some of you might have been to Africa before. It's just noisy and messy, and the traffic is chaos. These are all young men just hanging around on their motorbikes. Some of them might get some work as a taxi driver if you hop on the back of their bike. It's called a boda boda. And you buy your food on the street, and there's stuff lying on sheets on the floor. It is a crazy country to travel around in, but full of joy. You know, these people are so generous. You might sit in a hut with somebody and she would want to give you everything that she's got because you're her guest. But it's an incredible poor country. It's got one of the highest youth populations, so 77% of the country, of all the people in the country, are under 24. And of all those young people, 83% don't have a job. So that's why teaching these young people skills, that they're all self-employed, they can create beautiful dresses, build houses, make furniture, farm and sustain themselves food-wise, is so powerful. Now, one of the projects in the village outside, the young men who were learning the building skills would go and build houses. So that's what it used to look like. And then right next door to it is the one that you can see next to it. It looks, again, like another mud hut, but that's luxury compared to what was before. And we visited an old lady who was living in this house, very old, with her extended family were living with her. If you could move to the next one. And this family broke my heart. You can't quite see, you might be able to work out, I'm fighting, not just bursting into tears at that point. It looks like I'm grinning, but I'm going, this family was so inspiring. This woman with all the babies, she's got 9 children, 3 sets of twins, totally spontaneous, like no IVF. Her husband walked out on her. Twins are seen as a curse. Her husband had lost some money, ran off, just scared. So they got kicked out of their house and they'd come back to live with grandma in that little hut that you just saw. And these 9 children are walking around in old T-shirts. The little baby, the little boy that you can see chewing on something, you might not be able to work out what he's chewing on. It's a chicken foot that has been fried, which is a delicacy. And they had a big box of these chicken feet that they'd fried up, they were going around to sell in the village. And we'd said to the mother, oh, do the kids like the chicken feet? And she said, well, I don't know, they've never tasted them before, they're there for us to sell, the kids can't eat them. So we said, right, we're going to buy 9, and each of your children, I don't think we bought them for the babies actually, and each of your kids can have a chicken foot to suck on. And you should have seen their faces. They're like, oh, they were lovely. There was chicken fat all over their face. But the flavour and the luxury of having this chicken foot, and that just made me think, flipping Nora, I often am at home going, oh, I don't know if I want, chicken, I might have beef, or this fish dish isn't what I really wanted tonight. If we go to the next one, these are the 2 oldest daughters of that family. And this, for me, sums up actually what the African people are like. And this is a Christian family, and when we arrived with a whole bag of goodies for them, like a bag of flour and a bag of rice and some oil and some soap, this family didn't want to just come and hug us. They immediately gave thanks to God. They were so grateful. And because they don't eat many sweets, look how healthy their teeth are. Ugandans, well, yeah. I mean, many African people have this incredible smile because their teeth are so strong and so white. But they were absolutely brimming over with joy. They were singing and praising God after we left. Joshua, our driver, said to me, you didn't see the family after you went. They're properly giving thanks to God. So these children inspired me to live a life of gratitude, to live a life of being grateful for any tiny thing. A nasty chicken foot made their day. So sadly, these girls aren't at school. The kids aren't going to school because their mum can't afford to pay for the school fees. It's not free education. So Amigos, as a charity, is actually going to sponsor this family, and 2 or 3 of the older ones will start school as soon as possible. Now, if we go on to the next one. Or is it frozen? Here, no? It's having a little moment. Right. Now, my so what isn't a case of, so you've listened to me talk to you about Africa and you looked at some nice pictures, so what? Lots of charities go out to Africa, lots of money is raised to help the poor. But actually, so what was it that made what I saw going on in Uganda so inspiring? We know that we can put money in a pot and help some poor, stricken family. But actually, it was more than the money that made the difference. It was more than the teaching of these skills that were going to give these people a chance in life. What we saw in action was God's transformational love totally lifting people out of despair, giving them hope. And it's only God's love that can help some of these young people say, I forgive the man that killed my mother. I forgive the man that kidnapped me from my family. I forgive Joseph Kony, who was the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, for completely destroying my village. And for many of these young people, it didn't come in the first month or the second month, but because discipleship training was being given every day at the same time as the skills training, these young people were being encouraged to know themselves to be loved, know themselves to be forgiven, and the power of forgiving others. So all of this incredible practical help is going hand in hand with God's transformational love. And we might not have such enormous things to forgive in our lives. We might not have had such awful upbringing as some of these young people had, but there are things that would unpack, open up, free us up to live lives of complete hope and purpose. And I felt inspired to come home and think, who do I need to forgive? Who am I holding a grudge against? How am I limiting God from doing all that he wants to do through me? So the so what is what was it that made this so different, and the what next, so what now? And for me, I just thought, yes, I'm going to commit to raise funds for this incredible place, and I'm always making and selling things to send money back to there. But actually, I need to live differently now. I need to make sure that I give God every opportunity to make the most of this incredibly privileged position that we're in, with a house and contact with lots of people. So that's what the so what is next for me. And this particular message version, I thought, was just summed it up. I think in the NIV, the being transformed by the renewing of your mind is what, 2 sentences or 3 sentences, but the message really unpack it. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Oh, that challenged me. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings out the best in you and develops well-formed maturity in you. So that's what I would love for us. And if we could just, I think this is the last slide now. Yeah. What I would love to ask us to do now is just to give God some time to ask him, who do I need to forgive? What could be stopping me from living the fullest that I can live? How can I be transformed? Have I become so comfortable in my culture that I've actually stopped seeing where the need is? Now, I often wear this little starfish necklace because I love that story of a man walking along the beach and saw a little boy who was picking up starfish that were sort of dying on the beach after a huge storm had thrown all these starfish on the beach. And this little boy was picking a starfish up one at a time and throwing it back into the water. And this man looked at him and said, you can't possibly make a difference to this whole beach of starfish. You know, it's too big a job. And the little boy said, yes, but I can make a difference to that one. And I've made a difference to that one. So we can't sort out the problems in Africa in a wanna, but we can help one person at a time. We can't solve all of Bushy's issues, but each of us can make a difference to one person's life at a time. So I'd love for us to spend 5 minutes or so, waiting on God to ask him to equip us. Can't do it in our own strength. Holy Spirit is the only one that can equip us.